Welcome to Bible Story Time, and thank you for joining us. Today we step into the heavenly throne room for one of the most awe-inspiring encounters in all of Scripture. This isn't a story about a battle on earth, but about the moment a mortal man saw the King of Heaven and was forever changed. This is the story of Isaiah's vision. The story begins in a time of national grief and uncertainty. The Bible tells us, in the year that King Uzziah died. For 52 years Uzziah had reigned. He was a pillar of stability. Now he was gone, and the nation felt adrift. The throne of Judah was empty, and the future was unknown. It was in this moment of earthly instability that the prophet Isaiah was given a vision of the throne that is never vacant. He saw the Lord. He was seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the entire temple. This was not just a king, this was the King, whose majesty was so vast that his mere garment overwhelmed the most sacred space on earth. Above him were seraphim, fiery angelic beings of immense power. Each had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces in reverence. With 2 they covered their feet in humility, and with 2 they were flying in service. And they were calling to one another, a thunderous, unending chorus that shook the very foundations of reality. They cried, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." 3 times they cried, "Holy," a declaration of God's absolute perfection, His utter separateness from all sin and darkness. Their voices were so powerful that the doorposts and thresholds of the temple trembled, and the entire space filled with smoke. This was not a gentle, comforting vision. This was terrifying, overwhelming glory. And in the face of this absolute holiness, Isaiah, the prophet of God, was completely undone. He didn't feel inspired, he felt destroyed. He cried out, "Woe to me, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." In the blinding light of God's purity, Isaiah saw only his own filth. The part of him he used to speak for God. His lips felt utterly unclean and unworthy. He knew the truth. No sinner could stand in the presence of a holy God and live. He was ruined. But then grace intervened. One of the seraphim flew to him, holding a live coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar of sacrifice. The fire of God's judgment became the fire of His mercy. The seraph touched the coal to Isaiah's lips, and he said, "See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for." In a moment, the thing that made him unclean was purified. His ruin was remade into righteousness. His shame was replaced with forgiveness. God did not condemn him in his unworthiness. He cleansed him. And only then, after the vision of God's holiness and the experience of God's grace, did Isaiah hear the voice of the Lord. The voice didn't command, it invited. "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" The King of the universe, who could command legions of angels, was asking for a volunteer. And Isaiah, the man who moments before had declared himself ruined, now stood ready. His unworthiness was no longer the issue, because God's grace had covered it. He replied without hesitation, his heart transformed from fear to faith. "Here am I. Send me." This is not just a story of a heavenly vision. It is the pattern for every true calling. Isaiah didn't just see God's power. He saw God's holiness, and it revealed his own brokenness. God didn't just show him mercy. He applied it directly to the source of his shame. And Isaiah's response wasn't born of self-confidence, but of a forgiven heart, ready to serve. So often we feel disqualified. We look at our own unclean lips, our past mistakes, our secret faults, our deep insecurities, and we think, God could never use me. But this story shows us the truth. A true encounter with God will always humble us first. It will show us our need for Him, but it never stops there. His grace meets us in our unworthiness, cleanses us, and then calls us. Our mission doesn't begin when we feel good enough. It begins when we realize we aren't, but that He is. So let the holiness of God awe you, but let the grace of God empower you. Because the same God who asked, "Whom shall I send?" is still asking that question today. And the only answer He's waiting for is, "Here am I." Thank you for watching Bible Story Time. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These ancient stories still breathe life, because the God on the throne is still cleansing, calling, and sending his people today.